Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. It's absolutely amazing to be back here at GDC. Thank you all so much for being here first thing in the morning. So welcome to the Unity Roadmap for Games 2023. Today, you're going to get an overview of all of the new tech and new features that are coming in our 2022 LTS and our 2023.1 release and more. Those two are both due out this spring, as Andrew says. So before we get started, here's our safe harbor statement. I'll give you a second to read it. Really just says a legal statement explaining just do your homework before you make any tech choices. Great, so today I'm going to be joined by product managers from across Unity. They'll each be walking through their areas of speciality in detail. I'm Andrew, and I get to lead product management for our editor and runtime. And I'm joined by Matthew and by Simon and Tara. We're all really excited to get up here and talk to you all. So we're going to start by talking about our broader vision and what we're building to achieve that. And then we're going to walk through each of the product areas. So that's core tech. We're going to talk about rendering. We're going to talk about graphics, graphic tooling. We're also going to go into platform reach in some detail. And along the way, we're going to explain how then all of those lead back to enabling you to create really amazing player experiences. We're going to cover a lot of topics today. So as Andrew mentioned, we're going to have sessions that go into these areas in much more detail later in the day. So if you want to check out this QR code, you'll find a list of all the Unity talks happening today and this week. So what is our vision? Well, it's quite simple. Unity enables you to create extraordinary games of all kinds and reach your players wherever they are. So what do we mean by this? So we're focused really on empowering you, your work, and giving you the freedom to make the games you want, the way that you want to make them. And then taking that experience, those games, to any platform and really broadening that reach. To do that, though, we really look for your feedback. It really is key to everything we do here. And thank you for all the feedback you give us. We get that through especially our betas, our tech streams. Those are critical for us, through our forums, through Discord, through Reddit, Twitter, our roadmap pages. And as Andrew says, we're hosting a big AMA. That's the first time we've done that at GDC. That's on later today, where you can come and actually engage with us, ask us anything you want, just share your thoughts. And we're really looking forward to that. We also have a lot more detail in our game-focused blog series. That's the QR code that will take you there. So here are the product outcomes that we're investing in. Personally, what I'm really excited about is just this idea of really fueling your ambition to do more, to build bigger, more connected games, and really reach new platforms, reach new players, and take advantage of the cloud in new ways. And we're going to be delivering against these areas throughout the year. And let's get started. So let's talk about the core engine. And to do that, I'd like to invite Simon up on stage, who's going to share his insights with what's coming with programming and performance. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Simon. Thank you, Andrew. I look after the core of our product, the scripting and content that make your games. So let's start with foundation. To build great games, you need a stable, fast, and unified platform. First off, let's look at iteration time. We hear you. Getting content into your game, importing it fast, loading it fast, and building it fast are our top priority. So we're making the asset pipeline multi-process and moving that out of the core Unity process to improve content loading times and get you into editing scenes much faster. Many of you tell us that working on games, well, that you're working on games with long-term plans for downloadable content and things like that. So our addressable system is the ideal way to package up that extra content. Now, with the new addressables build report and profiler plugin, we will provide you with a lot of deep insights into the asset bundles that are created and the content of those bundles to help you reduce your download sizes and memory usage, which is going to be great for the 5 of you who are doing mobile games, and in fact for everyone else. Studios on the beta for this actually told us that they managed to turn pieces of work which previously took them several weeks into a 30-minute job of optimizing their asset bundles. So we think this is going to really help you. A dedicated addressables in-booth session will be at GDC, which dives into this in a lot more detail. There's going to be a QR code at the end of this session that you can use to find out when that's on. So some studios have also started to use a new format called universal scene descriptors. So this was a format originally from the VFX and film industry and is becoming increasingly popular with things like ARKit apps, for example. And in fact, in fully fledged 3D content creation systems like our own Wētā FX tools, for example. So we're investing in better interoperability and wider support of this emerging standard, and you can expect to see much smoother imports of USD assets in future. Package Manager is a way to import Unity, your own teams, and third-party assets, libraries, and bundles into your projects. We've streamlined this to give you more flexibility and control of things like the cache locations that your packages use, and also managed multiple packages together to save you time and clicks. So with multiple packages tend to come lots of complex dependencies. So we've added dependency visualization into Package Manager to help you manage this complexity. We've also added package signing, so you can start to have a little bit more trust in the security and source that your packages are coming from. Scripting and the C# foundation of Unity are, of course, key to development and interactivity. This is an area where we're focusing on increasing performance and reducing iteration time further. The .NET modernization initiative that many of you will have heard about already is well underway, with plans to bring faster runtimes and modern language features by integrating Microsoft's latest core CLR.NET runtime. In the shorter term, however, we will be working on APIs for the lifecycle of objects to make it easier for users to adopt what we call fast enter play mode. What this does is remove a lot of the waiting time caused by domain reload. Not all users can benefit from this today, so we are adding tooling to help you adapt your projects, help change your code so that it's ready for both fast enter play mode and for the future of .NET with core CLR. Meanwhile, we continue to improve our developer experience in other areas, one of which is to unify the approaches that we have to asynchronous programming in Unity. So there's a lot of ways that you can do asynchronous programming in Unity at the moment. Things like iterator-based coroutines and async await callbacks, GPU callbacks, Unity events, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of ways of doing job system. There's a lot of ways of doing different out-of-thread or multi-threaded operations in Unity. What we're doing is unifying these so that they're all compatible with the async await syntax, which is core to the C# language, so it kind of makes that a lot simpler for you to use, but also maintaining the backward compatibility with the existing methods so it's easier to port your projects over and take advantage of these more modern language patterns. We've also improved debugging, runtime diagnostics, and inspector visibility for burst code. So it should help you make writing burstable code much more efficient, much faster, and be able to understand the code that the burst compiler produces. Note, by the way, that burst is not just for dots code. You can actually use burst with any C# code as long as you follow the rules. What this does is really help you follow the rules much more effectively and easily. So the input system is another area where we've been listening to your feedback and got huge improvements. In February, we released a much faster version of the input system. This was version 1.5, which improves performance of the input control when read values change and introduces caching when values don't change. So you should see much snappier performance from the new input system library. The new input system has great power and flexibility, but of course, with that power comes complexity. Our focus now is on adding some simplified APIs and an easier onboarding ramp for the new input system so that we can make it both easier for you to use in the long term and to get started quicker. Our goal for this year is to make the UI toolkit one of the more graphics-intensive areas of this presentation, the best solution for both editor and in-game UI. We've added a new data binding system to it and ported many of the property drawers in the editor UI to the new UI toolkit system. What this means is that it's now much easier to customize the look and feel of any custom inspectors that you have in your own editor extensions. We've also made it easier for you to add your own custom property drawers to the editor through the UI Toolkit API as well. We also have a new vector drawing API, which is really fast and is great for things like splines, for charts, graphs, and data visualizations. And a new tree view control as well, which is fantastic for showing things like hierarchical data. Even for very large-scale trees, which load asynchronously in the background. We've also got multi-column support for the tree view and the existing previous list view controls as well, which has been added recently. So, for in the game UI, for when you're using UI Toolkit in game UI, we've recently published a new ebook with some comprehensive guidance on how to use that, and a sample project, which is called Dragon Crashers. The other thing that is worth looking out for later today is that the Ubisoft team behind Just Dance 2003 are going to be talking about that in a focus session at GDC to show you how they've used UI Toolkit in that project. Building on our work in UI Toolkit, we're making our editor much easier to use. One of the things we've added is advanced search in things like the Asset Explorer so that you can search for assets in your hierarchy in Asset Store and Asset Explorer, for example, but also produce savable queries for that, which you can share with the rest of your team and keep them aligned and keep them focused on the right sets of asset. We've also added search onto the right-click menus so that you can search through deep hierarchies of menus and through the many, many options that Unity provides you. So most of what you've seen so far is about making it faster for you to make your games. We also have a number of tools to help you make your games faster and more efficient. The memory profiler, which was verified in the 22.2 tech stream release, will also be coming to this year's LTS. This gives you a clearer view of what's happening in your memory. You can see details in snapshots of the Unity objects that are taking up memory on your devices. And you can compare those snapshots over time now, which gives you a lot of performance information. In future, we will be adding much greater detail on native memory use. And in our performance profiler, we're providing a clearer visualization of things like hotspots and bottlenecks in your CPU and GPU code, which will hopefully help you spend a lot less time digging in the data, a lot more time making your game faster. Okay. We know that many of you want to create multiplayer games. We also know there are many challenges in doing so. We've been hard at work on a variety of solutions to help you overcome and create and launch and operate multiplayer games successfully. We've got a few dedicated sessions coming up later at GDC about multiplayer development, both in general and deep dives into various technologies and specific tools. For now, here's a broad overview of what's coming in the LTS and looking at some of the success stories that we've seen from some of the early users of this release. So first up, casual co-op. A classic example of this is Ship of Fools from the amazing FICA production studio. Marc-Antoine Fortier, CTO of FICA, will be along to walk you through how they use netcode for game objects, Unity Gaming Services Relay service, which manages peer-to-peer connections between players and removes the need for a dedicated server, and the multiplayer tools package, which includes things like the networking profiler to test and optimize networked play. So now, with this full stack, you now have everything you need to produce and run a casual co-op multiplayer game. For competitive action multiplayer games, DOTS and the netcode for entities stack is coming up in the next LTS. The new dedicated server build target and game server hosting in Unity Gaming Services will allow you to scale to very ambitious targets. Sticky Lock Studios used this, and a large number of other Unity Gaming Services to produce Hystera. Jamel Ziati, who's the producer at Sticky Lock, will be along later to share some of their experiences with that. We're also working on a sample to help you get started. We are working on a multiplayer version of the Mega City demo, which will support 64 and more players in full multiplayer in a massive environment. And that will also include examples of integrated multiple Unity Gaming services. And of course, if you want to go really low level and get the ultimate control, you can do what Hugecraft did with their Turbo Golf Racing game and extend the base Unity transport package to build your own netcode stack on top of that. Andy Metcalf, their CTO, will be sharing some tips on how they did this and how they used Unity Gaming Services in the back end in a session again here later in GDC. Creating and launching a multiplayer game is one thing, but delivering an engaging experience and growing your player community is equally challenging. This is why we launched Unity Gaming Services. UGS, I've said it enough now, right? Can I just say UGS now and you all know what it is? Good. UGS is compatible with all current LTS versions of Unity. And it provides a foundational back-end infrastructure to run multiplayer games and any other kind of live game, in fact. It also provides analytic and player engagement tools that would deliver deep understanding of your game and your players to make sure you give them the best experience in your game. You can see there's a wide range of services here, and there will be other sessions later in GDC which will go into detail on some of these. That said, here are a few of the key things that you need to know now. Unity Gaming Services does support the Unity engine primarily and very well, but it's actually engine agnostic, so you can use it with other stacks. UGS is very extensible and very cohesive. We have both opinionated and unopinionated stacks and approaches to the services, as you saw with the multiplayer section earlier. So you can choose what is right for your game. We already support some huge AAA games with our services, and we've helped small studios grow to millions of players overnight with this stack. UGS is designed to give you insights from any tool you use. It includes capabilities to do things like A/B testing with your players and to make sure that you're delivering the best experience you can. When it comes to building very ambitious games, though, you need extra performance and control. This is why we started the Data-Oriented Technology Stack, or DOTS for short. The Entity Component System, ECS, which is a critical component of DOTS, is now officially supported for game production on all platforms. So ECS provides the scale and the detailed control expert users need to create ever more ambitious games. We've integrated this power into streamlined workflows within the Unity editor, allowing you to mix familiar game object code with ECS code where performance is most critical, giving you the control and flexibility to adapt gameplay for large-scale projects. Justin Larrabee, CTO at Sunblink Entertainment, will be joining us again a little later for a dedicated session on ECS here today to talk about how ECS helped them add multiplayer features to their game, Hero-ish, late in their production process. We've come a long way with ECS, and we're excited that it's now ready for mainstream use in the 22 LTS. In future, we will continue to improve the development and debugging experience. We're going to add more ECS-powered services and systems, including animation, and support for large-scale multiplayer in open-world environments. ECS can be complex, and we're excited to see that our partners at JetBrains have added some DOT-specific tooling to their Rider IDE to make it easier. Play video, it says. OK. You can Quickly create component data, aspects, and systems with the new customizable file templates, as you see here. Rider will recognize these dots types and provide helpful features such as navigating to generated source. It will also generate bakers and give you the ability to switch between mono behaviors and ECS components. And if you want to go for a data first based approach, it will also go from the data interfaces back to behaviors and create the constructors and bakers for you. It can also generate accessor properties for you automatically and for reference fields and aspects so that you can keep all your code nice and clean and rely on their generation. It also, of course, provides better inspectors, which give you specific inspections to find problems before you compile your code. It will find things like missing calls, and the Alt-Enter functionality will easily fix things for you on that. So if you'd like to know more about what JetBrains have done with a rider extension, their IDE for dots, then I recommend going and chatting to them at their stand at GDC. So we've given you some information about the stable, fast core and the performance tooling that you need to build your game, and how you can add multiplayer capabilities with full-stack end-to-end services to run your games, and how you can scale to more ambitious titles. Now, Mathieu is going to come up and share a little bit about what we're going to be doing in graphics.
So first, can we upload again, Simon, to go through all that? So I'm Mathieu Müller. I'm product manager for graphics. And I'm super, super happy to see a lot of people have not been here for 4 years. So come and talk to me after if you have questions about graphics. So in the past few years, we've seen the number of projects made with a scriptable render pipeline increase drastically. Now, most projects which are starting, productions which are starting or releasing are done with either URP, HDRP, or custom render pipelines. And what you see in this presentation coming and in the product is heavily based on your user feedback, but also real productions. So the first feedback, the first production feedback is always the same, performance, better performance. With the new generation of consoles and graphics hardware, we've been able to get more production feedback on DirectX 12 and improve performance and stability so that it's out of preview in 22 LTS. It's been a long time that it was on preview, so it's great news. And it also allows to push new features like split graphics jobs that will improve the prioritization of CPU graphics tasks and improve CPU performances. It will also allow to push new features like ray tracing to be out of preview in 23.1. You will be also able to render more characters with batch compute skinning, and you will be able to gain more performances when you use the volume system or put more volumes with improvements there as well. One of the major pain points in the past 2 years were build times, especially on URP. We pushed a lot of features which generated a lot of shader variance in the past 2 years. And this shader variance generated build times much longer. And with shader variant pre-filtering, we can now look at your project settings and just not generate the variants that you won't use. This allows to gain between 40 to 90% of the build time in our projects. You can read a blog post about it, improvements to shader build times and memory usage in 21 LTS. And this explosion of variance also led the shaders to be much bigger than they used to be. On the URP bot attack demo, for example, the lead shader is 300 megs. With dynamic shader loading, you can reduce the size of these shaders. And for example, on the URP bot attack demo, it's about 60 megs, down to 60 megs. And we know it's very hard to fit your entire game into devices, especially when you have very low memory. So the new map limits group is a system which allows not just to have your texture quality at quality level. So for example, you will half-res the entire textures of your games, but being able to choose per texture which bitmap will be loaded for which device. We've been investing, and we are continuing to invest in unifying our render pipelines and streamlining the workflows between them. So for example, the render graph, which was in HDRP, is coming to URP. It will allow to gain also performances, but also improve the setup of and the customizability of URP. And the URP rendering layers are coming to HDRP. So we use the same system for lights and decals so that you can choose what they are affecting and not use game object layers, basically. And we are also moving a lot of things which were like pipeline specific back to the core. So for example, lights, cameras, you can also associate different render pipelines to different quality settings. So it's something that we're working on. It's not production ready yet, but we'll come back to get more feedback. That's just the direction we're going to. So universal render pipeline is the successor of the built-in render pipeline. It's designed for scalable graphics, best performance over the widest range of platforms, and best customizability. In the last extreme, URP provides most of the functionalities that you could find in the built-in render pipeline, and in certain areas exceeds performance and functionality, actually. So for example, the forward plus render offers the advantage of the built-in forward, but with less overhead when you do multiple lights. You can find back the LOD crossfade so that you have smooth transitions between LODs. And, oh, I'm going too fast. And decal layers allow to choose what decals will be projected on. We are also bringing temporal anti-aliasing to URP. It's a new temporal anti-aliasing based on innovations and improvements coming from the HDRP1, but also offering different quality settings and optimization so that it can run on mobile. We have we also want to improve a lot the documentation and onboarding. And so we have very good news. The sad news is I don't know if you see the workbench template which has been here around for some time. And it's going to go away. We are very sorry. But there is a new URP scene coming. Actually, it's multiple scenes. So there is a new terminal, which is showcasing PBR rendering across platforms, and with a lookdev-friendly platform, so you can just drag your assets and verify that they are correctly lit. There is a second scene, so the terminal is a hub to go to the other universes that we propose. The garden showcases stylized rendering, and the cockpit is a very lightweight, low poly with stylized rendering using custom render textures, and will run in VR and also on very low-end devices. It's going to be, so you have a bit of time to say goodbye to the current one. It's going to be sometime after GDC. So for are there many, who is a technical artist here? Oh, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, like same as a mobile developer. So for shaders and materials, we want to highlight that material variants have landed on 22.1. It allows to create a hierarchy of materials. It's a similar concept to prefabs, but for materials. So you create a hierarchy of materials. You can add overrides down the hierarchy. You will be able to lock children. So for example, if you have a stylized shader, you will be able to lock the things which are related to the stylized shading or to the gameplay so that other people don't touch it, and then being able to propagate it back to all the materials. It's very, very useful in productions. I recommend it strongly. And so far with shader graph, you could mostly do only surfacing. With 22 LTS, we are adding a full screen master node in shader graph and some nodes that allow you to sample the different buffers from your render pipeline. And with this, you can do 4 new things. One, you can do URP custom render passes or HDRP custom passes. URP custom render features and HDRP custom passes to do things like toon shading or droplets on the camera and so on. You can do custom post-process, for example, night vision or other camera effects. You can do custom render of textures with shader graph, so you can procedurally now generate your textures in the editor or at runtime using shader graph. It allows to do things like trails or droplets on the ground, all this with a node-based system. And finally, with HDRP, you can do custom volumetric fog using shader graph, so that it can react to your gameplay or to your tools. If you want to get started, there are some very good samples on the HDRP package showcasing like different usage of that feature. Now for VFX artists in the room? Half, two? It's the same, I've seen. It happens, it's really often the same. So there is, with 22 LTS, we are introducing instancing. It allows to do much more, like you can reuse the same VFX asset without CPU overhead. There will be a presentation later about optimizing performance with VFX graph, but this one is key because it just works. You will be able to also have better visual fidelity with your smoke, dust, explosion effects with six-way lighting. So six-way lighting, you generate light maps for your smoke effects, and it will allow to be relit in real time. So if you move the sun, if you have dynamic lights going around, or even if you have light probes, your effects will be lit by this in real time. You can also control the color absorption and emission so that you can reuse your flipbook to create different effects. There is a blog post about this, realistic smoke lighting with six-way lighting in VFX graph, and there is a session this afternoon with Orson there. Boolean ports. So with VFX graph, you can create very complex and procedural effects. And sometimes you want to build an Uber effects that will be placed in different places of your world. For example, a fire will be on a round window, on a square window, and so on. And you want to be able to toggle entire blocks. That's what Boolean ports are for. And if you want to do even more complex behaviors, in 23.2, you will be able to add custom HLSL nodes. So you will be able to code inside of VFX graph so that you can do things which would have been too complicated to do or too heavy to do with graph, or things which wouldn't have been possible, like loops. Now for lighters, first, we introduced in 21 LTS data-driven lens flares, which allow to manually place lens flare on different lights and have a lot of controls on the way the flare are done. With 22 LTS, 23.1, sorry, you have screen space lens flare. So it's just a post-process, you enable it, and you have lens flares generated even on indirect lighting, on bounces when the light bounce of materials, like you can see here. So no setup, and it just works on any shiny surface. We want the GPU light mapper to be your main baker for light maps. So we are introducing a new light baking architecture that will allow us to have like more stable and more predictable light baking, and it will allow us to get the GPU light mapper, sorry, out of preview in 23.2. A big game changer, which is coming, are adaptive probe volumes. So it's a new probe volume system which simplifies the placement of light probes and improves the visual quality of light probe lit objects. So it was introduced in 21 LTS in HDRP with a second iteration in 22.2, and it will be out of preview in 23.1, including URP support. URP will support a bit less feature in that version than HDRP. It will be also the basis for our pre-computed real-time GI system. So we want to have a single system which allows to scale across platforms and across usage for dynamic global illumination. So let's dig a bit into what are adaptive probe volumes. First, it allows easier placement. So you have a world, you just generate the light probes are automatically placed for you. We generate an SDF mesh of your world, and we will invalidate the probes which are inside the walls. We will push the probes which are too close to the walls just for you. And it allows faster iteration time, because when you change your world, we just automatically place the light probes for you, and we also change the density where there is less density of geometry. 3, it improves the visual fidelity. So it offers per pixel lighting, and per pixel lighting means that you can lit bigger objects with light probes. And these are many advantages, like your dynamic objects can be, like your dynamic objects look better, but also you need less light maps because you can put more objects being lit by light probes. And using less light maps means less light map UV unwrapping and means like faster baking time. Another advantage is like when we design it, we integrated light baking scenarios. So you can bake a night scenario, then a day scenario, and at runtime you will be able to blend the light probes from one scenario to another one. And finally, because it's a system running entirely on the GPU, you again want to manage your GPU memory, and this is also, again, automatic. You choose your budget, and we will just stream the blocks from between the GPU and the CPU. And finally, like this is the first time I think we are showing it to someone. This is the adaptive probe volumes, which are automatically refreshed when you change your dynamic light. So it works with a static environment. You bake the light probes, and now you can change dynamically the lighting, and it will update. With HDRP, we offer even more features for time of day. So for example, the reflection probes, the dynamic reflection probes get time slice mode so that you can update them more in real time in 22 LTS. And we are working on a system to just relight the light probes and not having to rebake to re-render the world around them. We are also improving the physical sky and the clouds and the exposure so that they better work at any time of day. To push even further visual fidelity, so ray tracing is out of preview, so you can start to use it in production. It includes also VFX graph support and terrain height map support. And if you want to render high quality, like cinematics, the path tracer has 2D noisers now, which allows to get faster results. And if you want to try ray tracing, you just open the HDRP sample and the sample scene, and there are 2 new quality settings for ray tracing, and they are DirectX 12 by default. Now for environment artists, you can now create directly in 22 LTS, water, ocean, lakes, rivers, pools. In 22 LTS, we focus mostly on the simulation aspect, so the waves, like the swell, foam, and also rendering, so like the control of light scattering and color, caustics, underwater rendering. There is a shadow graph integration as well. And in the 23 cycle, we are improving the water line rendering. We're adding water deformers, current maps, and then water excluder, and water deformer, which allows to create waves or to create some vortex in your world. And there are 3 samples so that you can directly learn how to use it. I wanted to note there is also a query system which is burstified so that you can query the simulation or query the current so that you can integrate this with your gameplay. And to build your world, very often you need vegetation. The Speedtree team joined Unity. I don't know if you know, but like if you see a 3D generated tree on a movie or a AAA games, there are strong chances they are made with Speedtree. And when they joined, the goal was to really give the best tools for artists to create vegetation. So the Speedtree modeler gets a new version with new exciting features, but the Speedtree integration in Unity also gets better. First, we focus on quality of life. We got a lot of feedback, so it's not sexy features, but it's just like making Speedtree works better. But also we are adding motion vectors. We are leveraging the subsurface scattering mask of HDRP, so you can use the same shader for the trunk and the leaves, and the subsurface scattering will work correctly. And we're working on octahedral imposters so that you have better LODs. And because building vegetation is realistic vegetation is quite expensive, the Speedtree library is the largest vegetation library around, and we have added only like 130 species this year, and more are coming every quarter. And finally, to procedurally build your world, the Spline system has now a second edition, which offers extrusion, merging, and branching, plus some components to more automatize the behaviors that you put on your splines. All this with a better UX. There is a blog post about it, again. And this is the last section. Sorry, I was very fast. But it's about building characters and creatures. If you've seen the enemies demo and lion demo, like all the graphics features that were used in these demos are coming in the coming versions. So hair and fur rendering, it's in 22 LTS. There are samples so that you can learn how to use the physical hair shading. There is a dedicated hair rasterizer, because with hair you have a lot of anti-aliasing, or the lighting can be complex to evaluate. There is a dedicated rasterizer in 23.1. And you have the ice caustics using enemies, and the dual lobe scattering for the skin, also coming in the 23 cycle. I want to highlight that we have as well a fur and hair simulation package, which is experimental, made by our demo team. It's brilliant. Please try it and give us more feedback. And but making characters believable is not just about graphics. You know, like if a character looks great on a static image, it's different when it's animated. So the Ziva Dynamics team joined also Unity, and they wanted to bring their VFX acclaim simulation technology for muscle, clothes, fat, skin, and they wanted to bring it to real time. And this is happening in 2023, so this year. So the Ziva Face Trainer automatically generates a facial rig for any characters to perform VFX quality facial deformation in real time. The player in Unity, which allows to play this back, will be available as an official package in 23.2, and you can come to our booth and learn more about this. So this is the end of my section. Thank you. Thanks for following up.
Good job.
And it's Tara.
It is. Cool, thank you. Thanks. Hey everyone, my name's Tara and I'm on the product team here at Unity. Today I'm going to talk to you about how you can reach more players through device platforms. So whether you're developing for mobile, desktop, console, web, XR, or all of the above, we have some exciting updates to share with you. Okay, so let's start with some highlights for mobile developers working on those platforms. Many of you have told us that managing Android manifest files outside the Unity editor can be really tedious. So now with the new Android Configuration Manager, you can work with these config files directly within the Unity editor, helping you stay in your flow as you're using it. The Memory Advice API, basically it gives you a more detailed view of your memory usage data to help you adjust your game in real time. So you can avoid overutilization of memory, or even worse, device crashes. So looking ahead in the upcoming tech streams, we will have native support for Android Game Activity Application Model, which is tailor-made for games. It gives you more detailed information about the app lifecycle and input events between your game and Android. Through a customized C# library, you can also extend its functionality, and it can be updated separately from Unity editor versions. So we hope that this gives you the information to avoid things like your game getting into a non-responsive state. Okay, so let's move on to console development. With the 2022 LTS, all console platforms will now support incremental build pipeline. So only the changes you've made since the last build are recompiled, improving iteration time. And for desktop developers, Unity will support using Wi-Fi to quickly build and run your app on Chrome OS, which hopefully should be much easier. In partnership with Microsoft, we'll be bringing native ARM64 support for the Windows standalone player to the tech stream later this spring. Okay, so now some good news for web developers. We're getting closer to support for web builds on mobile devices in Unity by adding support for touch controls, virtual keyboard, and mobile texture formats. We believe the foundational pieces for building mobile web games are now in Unity, and while you're trying those, we are going to be focusing on optimizing load time and frame rate. A lot of you have told us that keeping within memory constraints on the web can be really challenging. So that's why we've added tools to help you manage memory, including a diagnostic overlay that works on both desktop and mobile browsers. OK, so it is time to start taking advantage of those CPUs on the web. We have upgraded the mscripten toolchain to enable native multi-threading. That's right, your C++ code in Unity can be multi-threaded on the web. So go ahead and write your plugins to take advantage of that. OK, so I could talk a ton more about all of these platforms, but for now, I'm going to dive deeper into XR. Are there any XR virtual reality? OK, so actually, we have more than 5, so that's cool. We have quite a few of you. So augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality. We have a bunch of news to share around that. So XR is an area that's near and dear to my heart. Many of us on the XR team at Unity have worked in dev studios just like you. So I personally know how both really exciting and also very challenging it is to work in this space. So I'm excited to share some updates with you about what we have going on here. The number one thing to keep in mind is that while working in XR is really challenging, Unity is chosen by most developers within that industry because we're so committed to making sure that you're getting to the device platforms as they continue to come out, and we give you those tools to help you innovate on those platforms. So over the next year, we believe there will be many new and exciting devices and technologies within the XR space for you to explore. So let's get a taste of some of the features that we're working on related to XR this year. OK, let's first kick off with PlayStation VR 2. Has anyone tried it? Tried the new PlayStation 1 or 2? OK, there is a booth here, so definitely go check that out. So we're eager to see how you use the powerful graphics features with the PlayStation 5 to build even more stunning VR experiences. There are a bunch of features that we've released with the 2022 LTS to help you build for PlayStation VR 2. So first is the universal render pipeline. It's packed with graphics features like foveated rendering and eye tracking, which provide a 2 to 3 times performance improvement when Unity is running on the device. Likewise, single-pass rendering can dramatically reduce your CPU usage by rendering both eyes at the same time. And Unity's support of the sense controllers, headset feedback, and 3D audio can help you bring a new level of immersion to players. So make sure to stop by the Sony PlayStation booth here at GDC. You can chat with Unity employees about the development for that platform and see some of the amazing games that have been made with Unity. OK, so now let's talk about something that's relatively newer on the scene, starting to make traction in the industry, and that is mixed reality. We believe that mixed reality represents a newer area for you to explore as a creator. It's all about bringing the real world into your game where you can blend virtual content with the player's physical space. So let's talk about some features that will enable you to build mixed reality applications. OK, first, OpenXR. It is the foundation for mixed reality development. As a contributing member of the Kronos group, Unity continues to invest in OpenXR as a standard. And there are a couple things we're working on in addition to many others, but here are a couple highlights that we're working on for this year. So we are actively developing the OpenXR plugin, which will give you access to the latest and greatest APIs and extensions for OpenXR. We're also adding support for standard composition layers, which will allow you to render things like UI, text, and video at higher resolution. In addition to OpenXR, we believe that hand and eye tracking are important steps forward for more natural inputs on XR devices. So we've invested in a cross-platform solution using your hands and your eyes as input into your game. You can get started with this by installing the pre-release version of our hands package, which is basically an API that allows you to get access to hand and eye tracking data if a device supports it. Likewise, the latest version of the XR interaction toolkit has also been updated to include gaze and poke interactions and a brand new hand interaction sample. Okay, so I'm excited to announce that in 2023.2, we will be expanding AR Foundation to run on Meta Quest devices. This will give you a cross-platform solution to start bringing the real world into your Quest games. In addition to features like device tracking, plane detection, and anchors, Unity will support an easier way to incorporate a pass-through camera into your game. While bringing the real world into your game is exciting, the real world can also be quite unpredictable since you have dynamic objects and environments. So to solve this, Unity's XR simulation feature allows you to test your app in different sample environments directly in the Unity editor without having to build to device. Likewise, the XRI device simulator also makes testing easier by using your mouse and keyboard to simulate input around head tracking. These features will be available in the 2022 LTS. We know that having robust templates, sample content, predefined interactions can save you a lot of time. So to help with this, we've released some newer interaction samples for things like teleportation, locomotion, UI, and complex object interactions. Looking forward, we're also trying to make improvements to our VR and AR templates, and we're going to be launching a new template for mixed reality. We have so many more exciting things that we're working on for the rest of the year, so stay tuned to what is going on in XR for Unity. We'll have lots of more things to talk about. So from here, check out the multi-platform development talk here at GDC, and you can get started with many of these features today by downloading the 2022.2, it's a lot of twos, tech stream today. We can't wait to see what you make. All right, thank you so much. I will hand it over to Andrew to close us out.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can I just get a big hand to all of our speakers, Matthew, Simon, and Tara. So look, as you can see, we're delivering all kinds of amazing features that really touch pretty much every aspect of your work. And it really is your feedback that drives us, so please keep that coming. We're going to be here for the next 20 minutes. The next talk is at 10 to 11, 10:50. So please either go grab a coffee and come back. Otherwise, we'll see you here. And finally, you can use these QR codes here to basically look out for our 23.1 and 22.2 releases. Thanks, everybody.